beds can go up to.
I can't hear you too. Be nice, can't hear you too. What
We can turn the main speaker a little bit this way because it's facing away from everywhere.
Yeah. Right there. Walk Africa? We go Walk Africa. Yeah. you don't know how to dance. Is that right? Yeah, that's what they told me, that you don't know how to dance. Are you sure about that? Well, yeah, well, I mean, you can move where you're seated. There's no problem, because dance is dance. Dance is from the soul, isn't it? So you don't have to stand up, but you can move it. But if you want to shake it big, there's no problem. We got a room there. Yeah, we got a room there. And don't be ashamed. There's no problem. We dance from the soul. You know, dancing is to free yourself and let yourself out there. There we go. Well, they told me that it's food time, so I'm going to have food. No, actually, we're going to take a little break. We can do another one? Well, they say that we can do another one. You want another one?
I had no choice in that response, right?
We have to still have a microphone. Well, too bad somebody didn't come to the center. What's wrong with this picture? We have a space. Well, I hope. Yeah, we will be back, and I hope. You got a last chance, to dance. Yeah, I hope you will dance. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. Well, you didn't feed me that one.
Okay, thank you to Casimiro Nussi and the NAFRO band, who will be back after a few speeches. So if you do feel moved to dance, feel free. If not, when they're playing their second set, you can check out behind me. We have our new community gallery space, and we have all the food set up in there and refreshments that you're welcome to help yourself to. For those who don't know me yet, I am Sarah Hodges-Kliznik. I'm the director and curator here at MHC Gallery, and I'll be your host for the evening. So welcome and thank you for joining us. I'd like to start the night with a land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that MHC Gallery is located on territory stewarded for generations by the Anishinaabe, Cree, Dakota, and Métis people. The gallery sits on Treaty 1 lands where we access clean drinking water from Shoal Lake 39 and 40 in Treaty 3 territory and use hydropower generated on Treaty 5 territory. We benefit from these treaty relationships every day and are committed to living purposefully as we work towards reconciliation and build meaningful, lasting relationships with Indigenous people and with all of creation. So usually we open our evening with a blessing. CMU Elder and Residence Reverend Vincent Solomon was going to join us, but he can't be here tonight. So I will read a blessing adapted from a Kate Bowler blessing for artists and creatives. So thank you for all the creators, O God of creation, who by their gifts make the world a more joyful and beautiful realm. Through their labors, they teach us to see more clearly the truth around us. In their inspiration, they call forth wonder and awe in our own living. In their hope and vision, they remind us that life is holy. Thank you for all who create in your image. Creator, we are also grateful for those friends and patrons of the arts. Grant that their numbers, support, and encouragement may multiply, that the work of our hands may continue uninterrupted. Save each one of us from selfish use of what you've given, that together we may accomplish the things to which we have been called. Creator, pour your spirit on our community, that our hearts may sing and our works continue to shine. So, with that, I will move to a little bit of a report, I guess, of what we've done in the past year. This has been our 25th anniversary season, so I think it behooves us to celebrate a little bit tonight. I mentioned a year ago, we've worked with over 500 artists in those 25 years, which is amazing. And 2 more around us this evening. So I'll share a quote, I think, to start us off with, from renowned artist Makoto Fujimura, who says, "Effective stewardship leads to generative work and generative culture. We turn wheat into bread and bread into community. We turn grapes into wine and wine into occasions for joyful camaraderie, conviviality, conversation, and creativity. We turn mineral into paints and paints into works that lift the heart or stir the spirit. We turn ideas and experiences into imaginative worlds for the sheer enjoyment and to expand the scope of our empathy." So that was Makoto Fujimura. Definitely can't take credit for those words. But we have partnered with a community of artists to explore themes of healing and spirituality this year, to consider the mysteries of creation and how to care for this earth, to celebrate our roots and to chart paths to our futures, and to connect with those who have given their entire career to find meaning and love in our everyday. these are good things. So much beauty has been met with the challenges of all that connects us as humans. One of the highlights this past season has been the opportunity to connect with CMU faculty and students in their new Ways of Knowing class. And I like to take the lead from them here to wonder, what are humans for? Perhaps an answer can be community, which is what we gather to celebrate tonight. Here at MHC Gallery, when we find opportunities to create, connect, and celebrate each other's stories and ideas, we heed a call to grow through artistic expression. And indeed, to paraphrase Makoto again, in making, we're exercising our humanity into the world. So later this evening, as we gather to celebrate, I'd love to hear some of your favorite moments from this past year, and please connect with me or some of our advisory committee or other staff throughout the evening. We've also prepared booklets that you're welcome to take with you with information about the past year, reviewing things that have happened. But briefly, some of our highlights include building a lot of relationships here this year. We've worked closely with CMU faculty, staff, and students to strengthen community right here on campus, hosting classes. We had a celebration for International Poetry Day where we had students read poems alongside professional poets and faculty. We partnered with CMU Press to create the Ice Moments book with Martha Hoheim, celebrating the work of Klaus Hoheim, which we have on the desk if you haven't seen it yet, so please take a look. But we've also worked beyond CMU. Again, with Ice Moments, we welcomed U of M professors to help us look at some of the science, what's changed in the 16 years or so since Klaus's photographs were created. We've worked with WAG, Winnipeg Art Gallery artist in residence Jessie Januska, whose work is upstairs. We've worked with mentoring artists for women's art, and of course, the Mennonite Heritage Archives and Mennonite Historical Society. Similarly, we've also built our reputation in the community beyond through all kinds of media coverage, which is great free publicity to bring people to our space. We've had reviews in border crossings. We have CTV Morning Live out really early. Martha can tell you all about that. CBC Radio, the Uniter, CHVN, Canadian Mennonite Magazine are all sharing the work of our artists and our community. As well, I briefly mentioned the community gallery. This is a really exciting development for the advisory committee and for our staff here. This was funded by the Winnipeg Foundation Community Grant Program, and it's designed to empower underserved artists to try their hand at exhibiting art. So right now we have our first exhibition in there. It's a teenage artist who doesn't get a chance to exhibit often. This is her first exhibition. But in the next year, we have some work by incarcerated artists coming up. We have a sound installation that will relate to oral histories and the Mennonites Writing Conference that will be here in the spring, and all kinds of things. So again, come and see me afterwards, and we can tell you all about some of the exhibitions that are planned in that space. And last but not least, I want to share that we now have a full-time curator at the gallery, which is really exciting. It creates opportunities and capacity for strategic planning to address challenges and allows us to also think about diversifying some of our funding sources to overcome the fact that the number of people donating in Canada continues to decline. It's no secret that these are challenging times, according to Statistics Canada. And although we're blessed with a very stable and supportive community, we want to focus on opportunities like developing a sponsorship package, in-kind support, and continue to pursue more grant opportunities as well. We also can share that we have pursued having internship opportunities to build capacity. We had a CMU practicum student this past year, Anela Marcoux, so thank you to her for all her work. And if you know any businesses or organizations who also love art and want to think about sponsorship opportunities, let me know later this evening. Next year, we look forward to connecting with the Flash Photography Festival, the St. Benedict's Table Artist Residency Program, the Manitoba Society of Artists, some historical Mennonite paintings, and much, much more. You will find there is a schedule for the main gallery exhibitions on the back of the programs, I think it is. So take that with you, mark your calendars, I guess. Look forward to that. Oh, so I have the first door prize is next on my list of things to do. Graham, do you have door prize tickets available over there? I do. Thank you. Oh, do you want to? You can draw it, yeah. I don't need to draw it. Okay. Just one for me. Yeah. Okay, so ticket number 709061. No one's hooting and hollering yet. 709061. Yay, Gladiola!
Okay, come by the table and I'll...
Yeah. So we have an Ice Moments book and a book of poetry for you. And speaking of poetry, given the fact that we've been thinking about different ways of knowing a lot this year, we've had lectures where we've had scientists, theologists, and artists get together and think about water. Our keynote speaker for the night is a scientist. I thought we'd have all kinds of different art tonight featured. So I'd like to invite Angeline Schellenberg up, who is a poet. Angeline is the author of several poetry chapbooks and 3 full-length poetry collections, including the just published Mondegreen Riffs. Her first poetry collection, Tell Them It Was Mozart, won the Lansdowne Prize for Poetry, the Eileen McTavish Sykes Award for Best First Book, and the John Hirsch Award for Most Promising Manitoba Writer. Angeline has also served as a Deep Bay Artist in Residence at Riding Mountain National Park twice, and a poetry mentor in the Manitoba Writer Guild's Sheldon Oberman Mentorship Program 3 times? 3 times. She's performed her work in many locations across Canada, so we're really pleased she can join us tonight. And she's also the coordinator of the Winnipeg International Writers Festival Speaking Crow Poetry Series since 2020. So, Angeline, thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Do potatoes have souls? Is there some sort of experiment I could do to find out before I mash them? How to speak of owning the ethereal? When the world was reborn, we grew in the dark, all eyes and hearts. We are by nature tangential, rimmed in skin, reaching. How did we learn from deep inside the earth, the nature of light? So the thing you need to know about this odd little tome is that it has 3 kinds of poems in it. One series is answers to odd questions that I found on the internet. One is poems impersonating musical instruments, and one is poems researching the history of color pigments and their use in culture. So that was an example of an odd question that I didn't actually answer. I came at sideways. And now, because of what we just heard, I would like to read you a saxophone poem. Oh, and what ties all the series together is empathy for difference. So I have sensory sensitivities that make it difficult for me to enjoy music. And so I wanted to turn music into something that I could love by giving it personality and words. So, and each instrument is also so different, and I think it represents the way we're all diverse in community, but all together, all our different cultures and personalities make beautiful music. So, saxophone. Sinew, sizzle, razor, debate, and muscle. Incarnate rare steak, alligator cane. Sunset riffraff, pizzazz as far as you can spit. Lazarus does a double take. Hazard a double fried moxie. Drinking cadmium, baptize a squirrel braying. Caffeine hotline, tangerine shenanigan. Crusty roll cactus. Muzzle caterpillar. Monkey shines grease. Edge of silence, weep. And I'm going to read you Beige, the color poem. What's interesting about the colors is that we tend to think that certain colors have a kind of feeling to them, but I realized how much that has changed from time to time and place to place. For example, for much of Western history, pink was obviously the color for little boys. And in Japan, yellow means courage, whereas here we think of yellow as cowardly. So I had a lot of fun figuring out, well, why do certain companies choose blue over orange for their logos? And what does it mean when different countries have different flags? And where did we find all the pigments? And how did those develop? So, and what is really odd is that you'd think that it would be the most fun to write about scarlet and vermilion and azure, but actually I ended up with 4 poems about different shades of off-white because there were so many images and word associations with off-white shades. So it makes me think about how, like, the artists on the walls, maybe they're like the scarlet and the tangerine and the turquoise, but they wouldn't be hanging here if it weren't for the walls. So the donors are like the beige, and now I'm going to tell you how sexy beige can be, because you're the ones that put up the walls. All right. A good beige whispers of violets or caramel, less kinky than khaki, more sunlit than drab. Beige is the builder of neutral ground between minivans. Though it's buff and tan, beige is never dated. It's the 9-to-5er who doesn't stray from path or pack. Sleepy music of sand, brush of fawn and mushroom, the best thing since buttered toast. In tones from diminuendo to the silence after the final chord. Warm as bisque, solid as a tusk. When an astronaut walked into Starbucks, the average color of the universe was christened Cosmic Latte. With paint names like Accessible, Balanced, and Barley, it may be the drop cloth for your anxious musings. Publicly maligned, privately hoarded, like ballet flats and gratitude, it goes with anything. Even Matisse's joy of life fades to beige, a chemical reaction to light. French for freshly shorn wool, it reveals what others are hiding. Texture, angle, depth. Beige pushes wallflowers onto dance floors, makes a red lampshade sing. Comfy as dumplings and oatmeal. While they say you can be beige to death, deep down you know it would be completely painless. And since we're talking about ways of knowing, I'll end with another question on that topic. Yeah. Where's the internet located? And is it open to the public? Would like to take my son to see it on vacation. I took my son to Playland and watched him tell every barefoot child, "You require socks to play." I took my son to school and watched him prepare plastic eggs on a cardboard stove. I took my son to the edge of the lake and snapped his photo before the cloud burst. I took my son to the edge of what I knew, and we jumped in together.
Thank you, Angeline, since you shared such lovely poems with us. And I should say, Angeline has books for sale here tonight from her Chris. So if you would like to purchase a copy, you can see there at 25.
709057.
So if you see Graham after, the poetry and the moments book. I gotta make my way to the microphone. Okay. I'm back to introduce our keynote speaker for the evening. Try that again. Dr. John Brubacher is an associate professor of biology here at Canadian Mennonite University, and also recently, very recently, the Lorne Dick Teaching Award Excellence Award winner for the past year here at CMU. So congratulations, John. His research interests are in developmental biology and cell biology, and he's particularly curious about the development of germ cells, the lineage of cells that divide and mature to become eggs and sperm. John's other academic interests include the interaction between natural sciences, philosophy, and theology, which makes CMU and indeed MHC Gallery an exciting place to be. We first connected during the Ways of Knowing classes at the gallery last year. So remember, they asked the question, what it means to be human. And John is here to tell us about science and art and all these connections. So come on up, John. Thank you. I won't get you. Slide.
Sure. This is a high-tech operation here, so. And those of you sitting way back, if you want to come on up, feel free. There, this probably, yes, now you can hear me better. Those of you in the back, if you'd like to come up closer, you're most welcome to. That sounds promising. You can see? Okay. Oh. Now do we have, okay. All right. Well, I mean, a couple of hard acts to follow. I feel like this is the second time now in 2 days that I've I've followed things that are much better to listen to and watch than me. But here we go. I came to love the MHC Gallery last year when I taught Interdisciplinary Studies 1000, which you've heard mentioned a few times today, also known as Ways of Knowing 1. That course is required now for the whole incoming first-year class at CMU. We split them into 6 sections of 20 to 30 people, and they spend the semester reading, listening, and discussing together a big question or a big issue. And so last year we picked a pretty ambitious question: what are people for? Which is kind of like asking what's the meaning of life? There's no probably single short answer to that question, so you won't be surprised to hear that we did not, in fact, arrive at a final answer. last year. But one theme that came up again and again was that humans are relational beings, yeah? Meaning and purpose for us are bound up in the communities that we're a part of. And relationships depend on communication, and communication, especially communication that evokes an emotional response, often happens through channels other than words. Think about the direct sensory experience of just seeing a smile, or smelling a food that you associate with someone who loves you, or hearing kids playing together, or feeling a hug, right? All of these things kind of go directly into our brain in a way that words just don't quite capture. So it was significant for us in the Ways of Knowing class to meet here in this room every 2 weeks, and we would pack 3 sections of the class together. So we had about 60, 70 students in here for discussion and community building with a larger group of that whole cohort. And it made a whole lot of sense because art is a form of communication between people. Art sparks discussions, thought, learning, growth, curiosity, all of which affect our relationships between individuals and groups. This is great. Is that like a grandfather clock? Speaking of sounds that bring back memories, that sounds very much like the clock that was in my grandmother Bessie Yoder's home many years ago. So anyway, just for us in Ways of Knowing, simply being here in this place, surrounded by art, and last, I think it was Miriam Rudolph's Layered Histories exhibit that was down here on this level for most of our discussion time together, which really thematically hit very well. But being in the presence of art encouraged us to pay attention in a different way than we would in a classroom. And so if you haven't had the chance yet to look around at Katrina Craig's exhibit or Jesse Januska's upstairs, or Elise Craker's in the room back here, take some time tonight to have a look around and just see how it hits you or what it sparks in you. So tonight we're celebrating the MHC Gallery's work, using the power of visual art to prompt conversations and questions and understanding of ourselves and of others, to make connections and to celebrate the beauty of creation that we are all a part of. And so in short, we're celebrating this gallery as a community hub, I think. But the weird thing is that I'm not an artist. I'm a biologist. But here's my argument for tonight. We biologists also communicate using images. Maybe not as artistically or with as much variety in the media that we use, or in as intimately personal a way as you see on the walls and floors even around here. We bring a fairly utilitarian focus to communicating a particular message in a very precise way, but we use images all the time because of their power to communicate with a clarity and an immediacy that are hard to get with prose. A few years ago, one of my former professors for statistics and population biology, Steve Smith, who is arguably the most hard-nosed, stubbornly quantitative scientist / curmudgeon that I have known, in typical Steve Smith style, wrote a set of 40 statistical principles that he thought biology students should be encouraged to internalize. Principle number 30, I won't give you all 40 of them, but principle number 30, no analysis of data should proceed until pictures have been drawn. So science and art are different, but they're both interested in communication, in learning, exploration, and discovery. In a nutshell, both are profoundly human activities. So tonight, I thought I'd tip my hat to the MHC Gallery and tonight's theme, community, create, connect, celebrate, by telling you 3 stories about images from my world, Yeah, okay, they're up there. The biological sciences. Each of these, I think, at least for me, underlines the power and importance of visual communication. Their artistic merit is a mixed bag. I'll grant you that. But be patient. There'll be at least some artistry towards the end. So number one, create. John Snow, the 1854 London cholera outbreak in case maps. Cholera, I don't know why I decided to talk about a gastrointestinal illness that kills by dehydration due to massive diarrhea, but there we go. Art sometimes deals with difficult subjects as well. In 19th century London, prior to the implementation of effective public sanitation measures, cholera outbreaks were common and severe. The disease, even today, can have a fatality rate of up to 50% if left untreated. And in the 1850s, there were no good treatments. On August 31st, 1854, in London, an outbreak began in which 127 people died in a single Soho neighborhood in the first 3 days of the outbreak. Imagine the terror of that situation. About 3/4 of the population fled the area. This was before the advent of the germ theory of disease, the idea that infectious diseases are caused by microorganisms. The commonly held view at the time was that cholera was airborne, caused by noxious gases released by decomposing organic matter, which in turn was aggravated by overcrowding. So this image that I've put up over here, a court for King Cholera, just shows a crowded public square in London as sort of what was seen in the 1850s as the ideal spreading zone for cholera. John Snow, sort of the hero of this story, was a medical doctor in London who had a long-standing interest in determining the cause of cholera, and he was not convinced by this sort of bad air hypothesis. Immediately when the pandemic started, he began investigating, and within a few days he had obtained an impressive volume of data from the General Records Office about the deceased and their addresses. And in the succeeding days and weeks and months, by exhaustively interviewing locals, tabulating additional records, he was able to piece together a persuasive statistical argument that cholera was not spread by bad air, but rather by contaminated water. However, it's not so much his statistical argument that we remember today, but a visual aid, a map that he produced to accompany it. Now, this is going to be pretty tiny for you, I think. But this map shows the streets in part of the Soho region of London, with deaths from the outbreak plotted as small black bars beside the addresses of the deceased. And I do have a little bit of a zoomed in view here. And basically, anything you see here that is a little bit of a black patch is a series of little bars, and each of those indicates a person who died who lived at the address where that bar is drawn. So this visual display immediately draws a viewer's attention to the central area. The only other features in the map are the locations of water pumps, which I've indicated. And so it was early drafts of this map that turned Snow's suspicion to a pump on Broad Street, which is now infamously known as the Broad Street Pump, near the center. By itself, this map doesn't make an airtight case that that pump was the culprit, but Snow's initial sketches suggested one immediate course of action that he was able to convince the local authorities to take, which was just to remove the handle on the Broad Street Pump. Take it off. People won't be able to get the water from there. The outbreak then dissipated within days, probably as a result of that action. But those sketches also suggested some additional investigative steps. I'm just going to point out this little block right here. So here's the Broad Street Pump, this part right here. This block is a brewery where about 70 people lived, and there were no deaths of any of the workers at this brewery, whereas all in the immediate area, there were lots of affected victims. So what I mean when I say that this prompted additional investigative sort of steps, like there's questions that this map raises. Why is it that nobody at the brewery died? If that pump that I've highlighted is the source of the whatever's causing the illness, then you would expect a lot of the workers at the brewery to have died. But in fact, they didn't, and it was because by and large, they were all drinking the beer that they were producing at the brewery, right? Which was not coming from that pump. There are other deaths associated with addresses that are closer to other pumps than the Broad Street pump. But as Snow went and interviewed the people at those addresses, he found, like for instance, some of the cases or some of the victims were children who drank water from the Broad Street pump on their way to school. Or people who actually had water from the Broad Street pump delivered to their home because they didn't like the taste of the water of the nearer pump. Right? So all of this kind of helped to put together a case, and John Snow was among early proto-epidemiologists who helped to create what has become a standard way of communicating information about epidemics, a case map. I found a recent textbook, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I found a textbook published recently, The Essentials of Infectious Disease Epidemiology, which starts with this story and refers to mapping cases still as the quintessential epidemiological skill. So putting an epidemic in a visual context remains important for epidemiologists. Snow never did discover the culprit responsible for causing the disease, which was a bacterium, Vibrio cholerae. But when these bacteria were later discovered and found to be waterborne pathogens, his prescient work was validated. So that's story number one. Number two, connect. Randomness and direction, scientists and lay people. These days, bacterial infections, such as the cholera that we just took a look at, can generally be treated with antibiotics, which are medications that kill bacteria but not our own human cells. But since the development of modern antibiotics in the mid-20th century, many bacteria have evolved resistance to commonly used antibiotics. Antibiotic resistance is a pressing issue in public health. Evolutionary theory gives us a good generic explanation of how antibiotic resistance arises and spreads in a population, but there's still a lot to learn about the details of particular real-world cases. This image is a screen capture from a video that I'm going to show you of a study in which investigators observed bacteria, not cholera bacteria, just a harmless strain of E. coli, as they evolved resistance to antibiotics. The antibiotics that they were using in this study work by keeping bacteria from copying their DNA, which keeps the bacteria from dividing, and ultimately they just die. There are three things about the video that I'm going to show you that I think make it a brilliant example of visual communication. Number one, the scientists involved in this study came up with a creative, elegant, but deceptively simple approach to watch evolution happen. You could do this in your kitchen if you were so inclined, with some plexiglass and agar from the local health food store and et cetera. But this simple setup makes visible the change over time and also individual genetic changes in a population of trillions of bacteria. Number two, and this is something that I always struggle to explain to my students. Evolution depends on random genetic mutations in individuals, genetic changes in individuals. But despite this randomness, it pushes whole populations in a direction towards the development of new, useful, or adaptive traits or characteristics. And people often struggle to hold those two or to connect those two ideas of sort of randomness but directed change. Struggle to hold those two features together conceptually. But here, they're connected, again, visibly. And third, this is a reel I'm using scare quotes, but I mean, this is a real scientific experiment that advanced our understanding of the development of antibiotic resistance and was reported in the journal Science, which, if you know about scientific journals, is one of the ones that people dream of getting their work published in. But the basic readout here, this is high-level science, but the basic readout of just survival, reproduction, and spreading of bacteria into regions of a huge petri dish that have increasing amounts of antibiotic in them is, I think, understandable to a general audience. So I could spend hours talking about this experiment and what it tells us, but I'm going to shut up and just let the scientists, they put together a little video of this, and I'll let them explain it themselves. And we'll see if we get sound here. Yeah. Oops. Sorry, Sarah, I've done. There we go. Whoa. I haven't pressed play yet.
Petri dish, except that it's 2 feet by 4 feet.
Okay, here we go.
So what we ended up building was basically a Petri dish, except that it's 2 feet by 4 feet. And the way we set it up is that there are 9 bands, and at the base of each of these bands, we put a normal Petri dish thick agar with different amounts of antibiotic. On the outside, there's no antibiotic. Just in from that, there's barely more than the E. coli can survive. Inside of that, there's 10 times as much, 100 times, and then finally the middle band.
I'm sorry. I just clued in. Now this will make more sense.
So what we ended up building was basically a Petri dish, except that it's 2 feet by 4 feet. And the way we set it up is that there are 9 bands, and at the base of each of these bands, we put a normal Petri dish thick agar with different amounts of antibiotic. On the outside, there's no antibiotic. Just in from that, there's barely more than the E. coli can survive. Inside of that, there's 10 times as much, 100 times, and then finally the middle band has 1,000 times as much antibiotic. And then across the top of it, pour some thin agar that bacteria can move around in. The background is black because there's ink in it, and the bacteria appear as white. First, you see they spread in the area where there's no antibiotic, up until the point they can no longer survive. Then a mutant appears on the right. It's resistant to the antibiotic, it spreads, until it starts to compete with other mutants around it. When these mutants hit the next boundary, they too have to pause and develop new mutations to make it into 10 times as much antibiotic. And then you see the different mutants repeat this at 100. And after about 11 days, they finally make it into 1,000 times as much antibiotic as the wild type can survive. And so we can see by this process of accumulating successive mutations that bacteria, which are normally sensitive to an antibiotic, can evolve resistance to extremely high concentrations in a short period of time.
So was that followable? What really impresses me about that experiment as well is that, it also captures and sort of freezes all the lineages of those bacteria as well. So after the fact, the researchers could go back and take a look at who gave rise to whom and see the actual genetic changes that occurred in that population. So it's brilliant in so many ways, but it also gives you a visual of the development of a new characteristic in an organism over a period of just 11 days. Pretty amazing. Finally, number 3, celebrate. Seeing with new appreciation. In my undergraduate studies, one of my favorite classes was a course I took in entomology, the study of insects. Part of that course required us to assemble a pinned collection of a certain number of insects, identified as precisely as we could. And so that meant spending time outdoors with an insect net with all of your senses on alert for anything that was creeping around or flying around or hopping from place to place. And then a lot of time indoors looking at many, many bugs up close. So, of course, you're taking these organisms and killing them and sticking a pin through them to make a collection, which might seem like a strange way of expressing your appreciation for these creatures. But nevertheless, the course made the world come alive for me in a new way, and it changed my seeing. And so the feeling that I get from memories of that course and countless encounters with insects since is hard for me to capture. As with bacteria, some insects do cause enormous suffering for millions of people around the world, but we also can't live without them. And even the nasty ones are beautiful in their own way. So I thought I'd close by just introducing you to one project that celebrates the sheer beauty of insects. I don't know if this is science as much as an artistic spin-off of science, but it feels kind of right to finish by blurring those boundaries a little bit here. And this is work that was done by Levon Biss, who's a British photographer who was commissioned by the Museum of Natural History at Oxford University to produce this exhibit called Microsculpture, which was an exhibit of massive photo portraits of insects, common insects, rare insects, ordinary and extraordinary. And when you look at those portraits, you start to appreciate that really just about anything is rare and extraordinary if you look at it the right way. And I'll leave you with this because you can explore this work yourself on the website that accompanied this exhibit called microsculpture.net. Which preserves that the exhibit came out a few years ago and has since sort of gone into storage, I think. But I do want to just finish by giving you a taste of Biss's work and what you can see on that website. And then I'll turn things back over to that wonderful band. So can we see this? This is just from part of the page. There are also videos that describe the project and the work that was associated in putting all this together. I could pick any one of these things. I'm going to go down here a little bit and go with the common reed beetle, just because it has common in its name. And if we click on this, here's this beetle. We can zoom in, drag it around, zoom in some more. And I mean the textures and colors and patterns and little spiky hairs and such stuff on these little critters is just remarkable. And I don't know if it's just some biological thing in me, but I could spend all day looking at these. And so I'll just leave you with that and celebrate the beauty of this stuff. And by reflection, then also celebrate this wonderful space and all of the thoughts and connections that it provokes for us. So thanks so much to the MHC Gallery for existing. 709-059. Ah,
There we go. Wonderful. Okay, well, you won an artist set, so I hope you paint or know someone who does. But yes, come see Graham at the desk afterwards. So we are almost done the formal part for the evening. The band will come back in just a moment. But before we do that, yes, please, thank you. Yes. I would like to ask Lori Matties to come up with a few closing thoughts. Lori has been a volunteer for over 15 years, I think, at the gallery. She is so valuable to us. She helps install almost all of the exhibits that you see here, and she is a wonderful member of the advisory committee as well. Thank you to all the advisory committee for helping us set up today. Lisa Lysak is here. Sue Sorensen is also on the advisory committee. Graham Unra, and our wonderful admin assistant as well. And Shagun Alude, who also designed our 25th anniversary logo. So, and Richard Clausen, who had to go visit grandkids today. So Lori, thank you.
Okay. This has been a magical evening for many reasons. And one of the reasons that it was magical is that a 100-year-old clock that came from Russia began to tick to the music. And I think that might say something about Mennonites. Either that, we should maybe learn to dance, or if you learn to dance, you get taken into the office. One of those two. And the other thing I want to say is that John Brubaker and I did not consult each other on what we were going to say, but I think you'll see some resonances. And I am definitely not a scientist. But, we can cooperate. I've just returned from a trip to Utah, where we were on a road trip exploring Utah's national parks. And as we moved from park to park, I was in constant awe of how the earth has heaved and eroded the rock formations that rise up from the ground in so many colors and variations. So the bug, the rocks, they're awesome. Nature is the best artist, I kept saying to myself. And in many ways, I think that's quite true. But it's only partly true. Nature's creatures are also the best artists, as we just saw, as they weave nests, occupy spaces, or perform mating rituals, among other things. Again, I am in awe. But I'm also often in awe over how my fellow human beings make art. They do it to express thoughts and emotions, to create beauty, or to unsettle the status quo. Art moves us in ways that other media don't. Art reaches into our senses, our understandings, our long-held traditions, and creates something new. Last spring, I think it was last spring, I listened to a podcast with a neuroscientist who studies the effects of awe on our brains. And he said that regular doses of awe can actually heal some things in us. So this gallery is really important. Not only does it provide us with opportunities to experience awe, it also gives us a forum for artists to network with people like us and with other artists. We welcome here both international and local exhibitors. We welcome exhibitions by professional artists, and now with our community gallery with emerging artists. We are pleased to offer ways for art to speak to our culture, our religious traditions, our relationship with the rest of creation. And I know that you're here because you support the work of the gallery. Many thanks to those of you who've been doing that for a really long time. And also thanks to those of you who are new here. I hope that you find both reward and reasons to continue to support the gallery. We're 100% funded by people like you. Your dollars buy the screws and the nails that hang the artwork, the hours that Sarah and Graham can work for us, and the fees that we can offer to artists. And we are hopeful and grateful that this gallery can continue to offer its unique forum for art for a long time to come. We're excited by the new possibilities for how this gallery can thrive and serve the community. So, you came here to support us. You came here to make a donation. You can do that by check, by, what's that thing, the card? Sorry. By check, by card, online, by cash. You can talk to Sarah and Graham about how to do that. And if you're not ready to do it tonight, you can go online and donate through our website. And again, many thanks. Many thanks for being here, and we hope that you will be generous. Thanks.
Okay, the only thing left to do is go enjoy the night. An Afro band will be coming back up to play. If you would like some food or some drinks, if you use the wooden doors over by the entrance where you came in, that's the easiest way. You can visit in there as well. Please check out the art by Jessie Januska and Katrina Craig. And, oh yes, Anthony Mark Photography will be roving around taking pictures. So feel free to pose and point out wonderful art, or feel free to decline if you don't want to be in a photo. So thank you for being here. I hope you bring a friend back to see our next exhibition on November 8th. Thank you.
Which one? The clock? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Had to take it out because it was so loud. It's going to boom.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So, we're good for dance conmigo? We go straight in. Thank you.
Thank you. What do we have?
I think everybody's in the room behind us. They can hear us.
You can hear us?
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't ask them to dance. They run away. You ask them to dance, they run away.
What you guys want to do now?
I'd rather eat than animal parts. But since about,
Sense of thought? Yeah, sure.
since about, I haven't done that for a while.
Sure.
Yeah, I need to go have another one. Everyone's got that one, I need to try.
Thanks for sticking around.
I thought you'd run away from me because I asked you dancing.
So I don't know if Kaz mentioned, but actually we as a group are actually having the privilege of traveling to Mozambique in end of November. So yeah.
Well, you're welcome. You can come with us.
Six pack? Sure. Oh, six pack. Six pack. You guys okay when I do my start off? We shift it up to 32. Just put it on there.
Shimbombo shinali lane, shimbombo shinali. Thank you very much. I want to introduce the band here. To my right, Roger. And there's you may know Nick. Anyway, we should be playing something. Let's go, let's listen. My brother from